Thank you, guys. Sometimes it's all bad news, but there's some good news too. So we look for that this day. We're now going to be addressed by Barry Lay. We're going to learn about the new techniques and a mature play about the horizontal development of the Clinton sandstone in East Canton, Ohio field. And Barry is a Senior Vice President, General Manager of the Appalachian North Asset Team of Intervest Operating LLC. He graduated from West Virginia University with a Bachelor of Science in Petroleum Engineering, has worked in the oil and gas industry for almost 40 years. He serves as chairman for numerous state oil and gas regulatory boards, including the West Virginia Oil and Gas Conservation Commission and the West Virginia Shallow Gas Well Review Board. He is an active member of various independent oil and gas associations and has served on the board of directors of the West Virginia Association. He is a member of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, is a registered professional engineer and a licensed land surveyor in West Virginia, and a member of OOGA. Gratefully, he is here today to address the body. Welcome. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Bruce. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're prepared for an exciting topic presented by a dynamic speaker. Well, at least I can say it's a dynamic topic anyway. Before I get started in the substance of my presentation, I would like to give you a brief overview of our company. Intervest is not an ordinary E&P company. Our structure is extremely complex. We are the largest company-operated general partner in the United States. We have ownership in over 40,000 wells in 16 states, with over 33,000 of those operated wells. Our 2P reserves are 9.4 TCFE, of which 74% is natural gas. We also hold about 6.5 million acres of properties. We produce just under a BCFE a day of production, 75% which is from unconventional sources. Intervest has approximately 1,100 employees with 2 corporate offices, 27 district offices, and 5 asset regions. Our team manages the Appalachian North Division, which is made up primarily of conventional reserves or conventional assets in Michigan, Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. We have under management in our area approximately 16,000 wells, of which 13,000 are operated. Intervest has a large footprint. I also want to start by giving a brief overview of the East Canton oil field. The information contained on this slide was extracted from a 2010 Ohio Geological Report on the East Canton oil field and highlights some of the statistics of that field. It was discovered in 1947. The field has over 3,000 active wells and total estimated original oil in place of about 1.5 billion barrels. The OGS estimates of recovery from that field are about 7%, or 105 million barrels of ultimate recovery. The field covers about 214,000 acres, of which Intervest operates 1,700 wells. We hold 115,000 acres within that field and produce about 1,100 barrels a day. On the map you can see on the slide, you can see the outline of the East Canton oil field in green, and Intervest's acreage position is in yellow. Characteristics of the Clinton Formation are, it's a Silurian age rock consisting of interbedded sandstone, siltstones, and shales. It's predominantly quartz cemented with very fine to medium grain. It has variable porosities with permeabilities ranging from less than 1/10 of a millidarcy to about 7/10 of a millidarcy. Below the Packer Shale, a dense carbonate lays the Clinton Formation made up of the Stray, red, and white, which sits on top of the Cabot Head, which is a shale. Why go horizontal? If you look at the map on the left side of the slide, you can see the East Canton oil field is outlined in green. The green dots represented on that map are intervest wells. This is a mature play with limited future vertical potential on 40-acre spacing. More than 90% of the original oil in place is still there, with more than 100 million barrels of oil being produced. And by its nature, secondary recovery is not effective in a large scale. So how do we increase recovery and tap into those massive amounts of oil remaining? We believe the answer to that is horizontal drilling. Realizing that we had a large holding with huge amounts of oil still in place, and that we needed to create value within the asset, we began to study the formation. Taking the 2010 Geological Survey report to heart, we decided to test the formation for depletion by drilling some infills or sidetracking a few wells. 3 wells that are shown on this map gave us the confidence to try some horizontals. The 4th well is a horizontal and confirmed those findings. The Flint Code 87, the Kowalski 1S, the Marks 2S, and the Ramsey 13S are shown on this map in the northern part of the field. The Flint Code 87 shown here was an infill well drilled as part of a reverse 5-spot water flood project, with the Flint Code 87 being proposed as the producing well. With the offset distance to the 4 wells shown here averaging about 901 feet. However, 2 of those wells are within 740 feet of the 87. After testing, this well showed an estimated bottom hole pressure of 1,450 pounds, with the initial reservoir pressure estimated in this field at about 1,500 pounds. That's about 97% of the original reservoir pressure. I'd also point out in this particular case, the offset wells have a productive life of average of 15 years. So after the well was completed and prior to the water flooding, we found that the results of that well were as good or better than the offsets. Second well, the Kowalski 1S, again was part of our efforts to test the reservoir. We re-entered an existing well bore and kicked that well approximately 600 feet from that well bore. The offset wells averaged 1,183 feet. However, 2 of those wells were within 800 feet. Once we completed the well, we estimated the bottom hole pressure at 1,250 pounds, or 83% of the original reservoir pressure. However, the average of the 4 offset wells have a productive life of 31 years. Again, the results were as good or better than the 4 offsets. The Marks 2S was our final sidetrack well. It's shown on the map here as drilled as a reservoir test with the offsets average distance of 1139. However, 2 of the wells were within 700 feet. After completion and testing, we estimate that the bottom hole pressure on this well was 1,500 pounds, exactly the same as original reservoir pressure. And again, the results were as good or better than the existing wells that it offset. After those wells, one of the horizontals that we've drilled in our program was offsetting 3 existing wells at very close to 600 feet. The average bottom hole pressure after completion of this well was estimated at 1,400 pounds with those 3 wells, or 93% of the original reservoir pressure, with the average of those 3 wells having a productive life prior to the horizontal of 26 years. So our assumptions were, and still are, that very little depletion beyond very near wellbore in the East Canton oil field. So from those tests, we believe somewhere between 250 and 300 feet is the normal drainage area on a vertical well within the existing East Canton oil field. This slide shows the microseismic events from a horizontal well, the Flint Code 83, drilled by one of our predecessors in the East Canton oil field, using a 5-stage completion. What I wanted to bring to your attention was that most of the events recorded in this well were within 200 to 300 feet of the existing bore and were in a southwest-northeast orientation. The Flint Code 83 was drilled in the Cabot head below the base of the Clinton, as you can see in this section. And it's clear from the data points that nearly a third of the events happened below the reservoir in the Clinton. This slide better shows the location of the borehole in the Flint Code 83 in the bottom in the Cabot head. And it's shown on this formation evaluation log. You can see on the right-hand side of this slide, the well was drilled in a more ductile, blue highlighted section of the log, in a more ductile rock. Although easier to drill, it presented completion problems and challenges. We believe the more brittle red areas within the formation are more suited for stimulation, not drilling, but stimulation. We believe that they more aptly induce the fractures and maintain the fracture connection within the wellbore. This slide just depicts a log section of the Clinton, and based upon all the information that we've accumulated, it's our belief and continues to be our belief that we best target the lower portion or white Medina with our horizontals. It offers the largest massive reservoir across the entire field. It's the cleanest section, and although it's not the easiest to drill, it does have the brittleness that we want to be able to induce and propagate fractures. Some of the challenges in what we've found to date. Land work is, if not, the greatest challenge that we found in drilling within this field. On the slide, you can see on one side a section of our plat, which just shows the area and properties included in our unit. The lower section shows a map with the existing wells, and some of the stick figures are some of the Canton horizontals that we've laid out. The existing 40-acre units almost all require changing for the development that we're proposing, which requires, in addition to unitization changes, a lot of tidal work to clear for drilling. With the advent of the Utica drilling in the areas that we're operating as well in the East Canton oil field, landowners' expectations have changed. They've created issues for us to permit, and in most cases, all of the units that we have require some type of modification. Our predecessors to Intervest did an excellent job and acquired well spacing exceptions in the East Canton oil field in a three-county area of Carroll, Stark, and Tuscarawas County. In these townships, the unit sizes can be reduced from the existing 40-acre units to 20-acre units with 600-foot well offsets and 300-foot unit boundary offsets. You can see on the map, excuse me, the existing wells are shown with a 300-foot radius, and our proposed horizontal lateral is shown with a 300-foot radius. So you can see that there is a tight window with which to fit the laterals in for drilling. Drilling challenges. The Canton is an extremely hard abrasive sandstone. Our rate of penetration and bit life management is critical to the success of drilling operations in the Canton. It's not uncommon to DBR a bit. The low mud weight is important because of the relatively underpressured formation that we're dealing with. The saline salt can be an issue when drilling the curve. If you have difficult time in getting through that and getting the curve propagated, it can be problems. Bits tend to climb and walk away during drilling in the formation itself because of the nature of the Canton being a lenticular sandstone and because of encountering bedding changes. And slides can be extremely difficult and time-consuming and costly. This slide simply shows a graph of our work on the 7 Canton horizontals that we've drilled to date, showing drilling depth versus drilling days. Our first well we drilled, the Seiler McGee, took 33 days from start to finish, and we only achieved a 1,250-foot lateral in that well. Our drilling team did an excellent job, and over the next several wells, at least 3 of those wells, the Lotzenheiser, Ramsey, and Glassley, all achieved over 2,000 foot of lateral within about 24 days of drilling operations. So significant strides were made. Our latest well, the MWCD Dutton, even though we encountered a difficult time building the curve for other reasons with regard to lift, we were able to reach 2,700 foot of lateral in 44 days. And as you can tell from this curve, if you have any problems, these wells can get expensive quick. Production challenges. To date, the major production issues we've had has been with artificial lift. the different lifts we've worked with, where do we locate those within the well bore? Sand is an issue. Some of our early wells we completed without sand. The later wells we've been using sand, and that's become an issue. Paraffin in the East Canton oil field, particularly in the southern part of the field, is a problem. We've also encountered scale, primarily iron sulfide. In dealing with those issues, paraffin, scale, and the like, we've also had some problems with emulsions because of compatibility of chemicals and reservoir fluids. If you can see, the two pictures on the right-hand side of the slide represent some of the emulsions that we've seen because of treatments. To date, they have not been detrimental, but they are very difficult to deal with. They do affect runtime, and our primary lift method, or at least the most exposed lift method we've used to this point, has been rod pumps. Runtime in wells without sand has been excellent. We have wells that have ran now for a year without any difficulties. Run times in sands where wells that we've utilized sand, we have had as little as 2 to 3 weeks run time without having to trip a pump. So it is an issue. We have been experimenting with electric submersible pumps, and they really looked promising early on, but emulsions, runtime, pump design, well design have all come to light as we get into the production a little longer. Still believe it's a good option because it gives us the opportunity to move higher rates to lower rates of fluid with one installation. However, that remains to be seen if that's the ultimate answer to this point. Jet pumps were used early during flowbacks to move high volumes of water after stimulation. They worked excellent. However, their drawback was their position within the well bore. They're not made to go into the vertical or the horizontal part of the hole, and they had to be set very high in the deviated part in the curve, which leads to problems as well. So it's a great method, but artificial lift, again, the biggest problem that we've had to encounter. Initially, you've got to move large volumes of water from stimulation. The wells must be placed on artificial lift immediately after drilling out all your frac sleeves. We've tried numerous methods. Jet pump worked excellent. Initial moving fluid as the well started to reduce pressure, reduce flows, and the location that we had that pump, it's not as efficient. Rod pumps work well in a no sand environment. However, we've been pumping those wells from the horizontal portion of the lateral. It leads to problems. We've had to beef pumps up. We've had problems with fines, sand, and so forth. So it's not an ideal situation either. You also have the initial problem of not being able to move the amount of fluid necessary to get completion fluids out and get production flowing. So it's not the one-stop shop answer. We've worked with modified gas lift methods. Again, we weren't able to achieve a low enough bottom hole pressure to give us the flow rates that we had hoped for. The electric submersible pump, again, even though it's got its problems, is one that gives us a wide range of deliverabilities in a one-stop installation. Hopefully we can make it the answer. We need more testing. We need more pump time to see if that is in fact the case. Other challenges. Clinton horizontals use about 60% the footprint of a Utica or other shale well. However, many people have the same idea that we're a unconventional operator in an unconventional reservoir. Many of the county, township, and even landowners require more and specific documentation. Counties and townships requesting RUMAs for development of the Clinton. Obviously, the expectations of lessors and the landowners are more because of the shale environment. You know, the cost of acquiring leases, rights of ways, or facilities agreements remain expensive, or in some cases we're unable to get them because we can't compete with dollars paid by shale operators. Obviously, state and local regulation, although they've been excellent to work with, still becomes an issue in how we do business with spacing and unitization and other. And finally, the biggest impediment to our development right now is commodity prices. It's difficult to develop Clinton horizontals at $30 oil. Results. Some of the things we've learned on costs in the development of our program, things that were easy to address, or not easy, but things that we've overcome, and a lot of it is due to the work of our drilling group and our production group. But current reductions, we've been able to decrease trip time. Our first well, the Siler McGee, was drilled with a single and a lot of bits, and trip time killed us. Doubles shortened that time, so going to a double rig was a huge, even in the absence of a pull down, it still did a great job for us. Increased ROP and bit life. Again, the drilling guys working with the bit companies came up with a better bit to drill our formation. We reduced the mud cost going from a polymer-based mud to a starch-based mud. We've been able to improve the time and efficiency in drilling the curve. And all these costs were kind of offset by our testing initially to determine what the productivity of the wells are. Some other possible savings going forward into full development. We should be able to decrease the cost of our water disposal by utilizing it in additional stimulation in a full development mode. We should hopefully be able to reduce our cost of flowback testing. We should be able to gain synergies from purchasing equipment, supplies, and services. And once we determine on the optimum artificial lift, then that too should gain us some synergies. Okay, that's probably what everybody's interested in. What are these wells capable of doing? You can see on this slide two different curves. The curve on the right, these are both type curves that our reservoir engineering group has generated. Curve on the right is a typical vertical well in InterVest's inventory. The one on the left represents a horizontal well based on the information we have from our current production within that field. I've tried to line them up so that the scales match as to where, if you look straight across the page, they should be scale on scale. From our data, what we have seen and what we expect is at least a 10-fold increase by drilling horizontally over a vertical well in the initial production rates. I think we will see that increase as we continue to develop wells, continue to learn more about the reservoir, refine our stimulation drilling techniques. Also, if you'll notice in the Clinton horizontal well, there's a small tick and actually two slopes to that decline curve. What we've noticed is that there is an initial flush that has a steep decline, and very quickly that curve will change slope and go into a normal decline mode. Some of the important metrics are shown in the next two slides. The first is well cost. If there's no problems in right now drilling at Clinton horizontal at current pricing, the well cost is $1.8 million for slightly near or slightly over a 2,000 foot horizontal lateral. The cost for drilling a Clinton vertical well for us now is about $400,000. Second matrix there is net oil reserves, net oil reserves. Our data shows that the net oil reserves for Clinton horizontal are approximately 140,000 barrels of oil. The net oil reserves for our typical vertical well is 22,000 barrels of oil. Gas reserves on a horizontal, 160 million. On a vertical well, 24 million. Total volume on an MCFE basis for Clinton horizontal, just under a BCF for a 2,000-foot lateral, and 135 million for a vertical well. Our projected revenue at our price model currently shows a Clinton horizontal will generate $7 million in revenue, while a vertical well, $1 million. Our finding costs in a Clinton horizontal are about $10 per barrel. In a vertical Clinton well, about $16 a barrel. Where do we go from here? Well, we've generated a lot of questions in our development to this point. 7 wells is not the development of a field. Lateral length is one of the most important parameters we need to define. What is the point, and where do we reach a point of diminishing return on our investment? Is lateral length the same in every area of the field? How crucial is orientation? We feel strongly that an azimuth of 150 or 330 degrees is the best. But can you drill anywhere in the northwest, southeast quadrant and have success? Our reservoir testing has been limited to the northern part of the field. Will depletion be an issue in the older parts of the field in the middle and on the eastern side, or the western side, excuse me? Do we need to be in the cleanest part of the rock? Or can we drill in some of the softer portions between the white and red or stray? And for us, the biggest question, is it economically viable to drill in historically weaker sections or areas of the Clinton, and will those wells be economic? In summary, what we believe are the Clinton horizontal offers a better way to drill a field that has a lot of oil remaining in it. The cost to drill a horizontal versus a vertical is 4.5 times more cost in achieving a completed well horizontally. However, it yields 6.5 times the reserves and the production. The finding costs are 31% better in a horizontal. The Clinton in the oily areas is an excellent horizontal candidate. It has porosity within ranges that are norms. Permeability is extremely low. Therefore, the more exposure to the reservoir rock should yield more production. bit selection and mud systems are very important to its success as well. And like it says in the slide, the formation can eat bits like a hot dog eating champion at Coney Island, and that's the truth. Finally, the biggest problem, and one that we will overcome, is artificial lift. What type is the most efficient, most effective, and will give us the longest run time? I need to thank a lot of people at Intervest that helped both put this play together and help me accumulate this production, or this presentation. Todd Tietrich, Jeff Stevens, Tim McConaughey, Mike Burkhart, Tom Vosick, Charlie Youngin, James Ayers, Daniel Herman, Joe Wade, Sean White, Athena Ebersol, and Troy Valisak. All of them are critical people to the execution of our drilling programs in our area. They've been extremely dedicated and hardworking to make sure that we take a large asset for Intervest and create value with it. Thank you. Any questions?
Please raise your hands high if you have questions, and I'll come with you, to you with the mic.
Thanks. Hey, you had said one of these horizontals cost about 1.3 million when things are, going pretty good. How long has it taken you guys to drill and complete these? Do you have an idea yet?
Yeah, actually the drilling cost without any problems is about 1.8 million.
Okay.
Total drilling time, if we have no problems, slightly over 24 days, 20 to 25 days. Completions, typically, our guys have been able to pump those in 2 to 3 days from start to finish.
Thanks.
Hey, Gary, what's the frac spacing on the horizontal part? We've kind of experimented with that. On the spacing of our, we've been utilizing a Packers Plus type completion. We have done some stages as low as 90 feet, but 140 feet typically, I think, is a good number for that.
Have you tried drilling on foam?
I'm sorry?
Have you tried drilling on foam as opposed to mud?
We have not. We have not. We've used our initial drilling was with polymer-based muds, and we've gone to starch-based since then.
Barry. Could you elaborate on the sand concentrations? I know you went from no sand to running sand, so in the mesh maybe 20, 40, whatever, on your stages.
Yeah, we've experimented a little bit with that. We've only done 2 wells with sand, and they have been our 2 best. The concentrations we ran very similar, well, actually just a little bit less than we would do in a normal conventional vertical well. And my background, Bruce, our completions in the Clinton in a vertical well, we didn't use sand. And we did some experimentation. We got better results using it. Our concentrations were relatively low. We didn't go much over 1.5 pounds to gallon. Total volumes of sand, 24. I don't think we crowded 30,000 pounds per stage, and our fluid loads were kept, we started out at about 4,000 barrels a stage. We're down to 2,500 barrels, and that may even go lower.
What kind of bits you all use when you went horizontal? Have you experimented with, what I should say is, what bits have you experimented with as when you went horizontal?
You know, we spent a lot of money drilling these wells, and to tell you the truth, I'm not the expert on drilling anymore. It's passed me by, but most of the drilling have been with PDC bits. Once we get into the formation.
Have you seen any communication with any of the vertical wells when you do the completions?
To this point, not really. We had one well that showed a little bit of an increase. We don't know whether that was a well that wasn't pumped off, and when we kicked it on because of the stimulation, it made a little bit extra. But really, we haven't seen any drastic communication with any existing wells.
And then as far as when you're drilling, are you able to put multiple wells on one pad to cut cost structures on this, or is it kind of a single well per pad deal?
You know, it's kind of early to tell. I think we're going to be limited in the amount of our compound curves. We're going to try some, but I suspect introducing a compound curve is only going to increase our lift problems. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I think it's going to be a challenge. It's going to have to be overcome because it's of the lift more than anything. Okay, thank you.